podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Hi, this is Leo Laporte, and this is my Tech Guy podcast. This show originally aired on the Premier Network's 200 stations coast to coast on Sunday, June 28th, 2020. This is episode 1708. Enjoy. The Tech Guy podcast comes to you from TWiT's LastPass Studios. Stay in control when it comes to your company's access points and authentication. LastPass makes enterprise-level security simple for your remote workforce. Check out lastpass.com/twit to learn more. Well, hey, how are you today? Leo Laporte here, the Tech Guy. Time to talk about tech, computers, the internet, home theater, digital photography, Macintosh ARM chips. 8888 Ask Leo. That's about as geeky as we'll get. 8888 Ask Leo. This is not a show for showing off our geek knowledge. Well, occasionally we'll get that. I can't help it. Callers can't help it. We get that. But really, it's not supposed to be that. It's supposed to be a show where we geeks get together to help you, adorable people, understand technology. I am bilingual. I speak both tongues, geek and normal, so I will be your guide to this weird and wacky world that's changing everything. I don't know if the world really realizes it, but this past week was kind of a watershed, an important transition, or the beginning of an important transition in technology. A transition that began in 2007 with the release of the iPhone. It was right about now, 13 years ago, the first iPhone came out. And I mean, we all know, I don't think I have to tell anybody what a difference the iPhone made in the world. You know, it was started with the iPhone, but then everybody copied it, and Android phones, which look very much like the iPhone, a slab of black glass, became very popular too. Let's not say Apple owns the market, by no means. But they started it, and then something else happened that it changed a lot of things. Suddenly you have a supercomputer in your pocket. You're always connected to the internet. That's really an interesting transition. You have applications you can run on these little pocket computers that can connect you to people. There would be no social media if it weren't for smartphones, right? We had them on the desktop. I'm not saying, you don't have desktop social media, desktop Twitter, desktop Facebook, but most of the usage now is mobile. Most computing is mobile. That's a big transition. Under the hood, though, there was a big transition, too, because unlike all the computing up to that point, and ever since the 70s, these new computers were not based on a chip design we call x86. Intel created it, but others made x86 chips, including AMD. Those chips really were dominant in desktop computing. Laptops and desktops had no place in mobile. And Intel tried. It wasn't that Intel didn't try, but their chips, for some reason, they couldn't figure out how to make them low power enough, cool enough to run in little tiny devices. So they just gave up. They literally gave up. And companies like Qualcomm and Samsung and others came along with their versions of these chips. Apple, of course, made their own chips. All based on not x86, but a different architecture called ARM. It's similar, it's different. A computer's a computer from the point of view of those of us who use them. There isn't probably a whole lot of difference, but from the point of view of the designers, there is. ARM, which stands for Advanced RISC Machine. It's not RISK, it's RISC, Reduced Instruction Set Computer. Was much lower power, ran much cooler, did fewer things. That's the reduced instruction set. Didn't do as many things as the big brother x86 did, but it did it more efficiently. And it also began a transition that we call now the system on a chip. Because if you've got a small device, little pocket-sized computer, the last thing you want to do as a manufacturer is have 12 different chips on there. You want to make as few as possible. So they got more and more incorporated into the system on a chip. Memory, radios, interfaces to storage. Of course, the processor itself, a graphics processor later that would do all the graphics, the drawing on the screen. These systems on a chip became very, very powerful. And they were all based on this RISC architecture. Lower cost, lower power consumption, cooler running, not so hot. That's important too, right? In a little device like this, there's no fan in your phone. And this transition turned the world on its edge, on its ear, because no longer were the dominant form of computing done on laptops and desktops. It was in your pocket. Almost all the computing being done these days is done in your pocket. Now, of course, that internet connection in your pocket has to go to a more traditional big machine in a server somewhere. So but even those started to feel the change. We're starting to see them move to ARM. And of course, the big change happened this week when Apple said, you know what, we're not going to make any more computers based on the x86 architecture. Goodbye, Intel. Now, Apple doesn't own, the desktop marketplace. It's at best 10% of desktop and laptop computing. It does, frankly, only owns about 20% of the phone space. In the U.S., it's more like 50%. But it's not even dominant in phones. But it is highly influential, just as the iPhone influenced every other smartphone after it, all running on chips that Apple had chosen. The iPhone's chips are Apple design, but they're based on this ARM architecture. Just as everybody followed the leader there, in desktop computing, I think everybody might follow the leader there. And it might be bye-bye to the x86 architecture, which, let's face it, is pretty old. Came out in the 70s. It's almost 50 years old now. That's a pretty old system. For computing, 45 years is a lifetime. More than a lifetime. Several lifetimes. And we really have felt the pain of that. A lot of computing has been hobbled by this x86. We worked hard to make it, do a lot of stuff. But that chip in your desktop computer, the Intel i5 or i7 or maybe a Xeon, that thing uses more power than a light bulb. Several light bulbs. There's a lot of heat. That's why it's people with fast processors, sometimes you have water-cooled computers like a like a car on your desk. They generate a lot of heat. And what is heat? Well, heat is wasted electricity. That heat is not going towards computing or getting a job done. It's wasted electricity. So heat is not a good thing. It wears out chips and it shows that you're inefficient. Apple announced that they're going with what they call Apple Silicon starting this year, I think, and they said this transition will take 2 years. My suspicion is it'll be over by the end of 2021, by the end of next year. All Apple computers, all Macintosh computers will be running on these new Apple chips. And yeah, they're only 10% of the market, just like the iPhone's only 20% of the market. But watch. This is the beginning of the end, not just for Intel, but for this whole dated architecture. This is a change in the way we think of computing. And this change has been going on in other ways too, because frankly, and Microsoft knows this. This week, Microsoft announced we're closing all the stores. We closed them for COVID. We're not going to reopen them. 86 stores worldwide. That's it. We're out of the store business. Now, why would Microsoft say we're getting out of the store business? Well, obviously, they weren't making money on their stores. But it also, I think, says something about the future of computing. Microsoft doesn't have a mobile phone platform. They kind of have mobile computers, but they're like tablets. But that's still a laptop, let's face it. I think Microsoft's starting to say, hey, maybe the writing's on the wall. It's actually started 5 years ago for Microsoft when Steve Ballmer, the CEO, left and a guy named Satya Nadella took over. Satya Nadella came from the cloud side of Microsoft. He ran Azure, their cloud services. And he has slowly been repositioning Microsoft away from computers, PCs, and more towards the cloud. That's where the future of Microsoft lies. It may be where the future of computing lies. We're in the middle of a big transition. It's going to be fun to watch. I'm actually thrilled because it's been getting boring's not the right word, but you probably have noticed that your computer, a computer you bought 5 years ago, is not appreciably slower than the computer you'd buy today. The smartphones have kind of stagnated. They're getting bigger and, you know, weird things are happening. They're dropping headphone ports and stuff. But really, a slab of glass has looked pretty much the same over the last 5-6 years. We're in a plateau. That plateau is about to end, and things are about to get very interesting. And thank goodness for me, because that's what I do. So over the next year or so, as we talk about tech on the Tech Guy, I think we're going to see some interesting things happen. And that all you can all pin that on the events of Monday this week when Apple said, you know what, bye-bye Intel. Boy, I mean, Intel was a big name in personal computing for the last 40 years, wasn't it? I wonder what its future holds. 8888 Ask Leo is my phone number, 888-827-5536. That's the number. If you want to call, I'd love to hear from you. Anywhere in the U.S. or Canada, that's toll-free. Still toll-free if you use a Skype out or something like that to call the number. Website, where we put everything we talk about. James DeRufo is writing this down as I speak. He'll put that all up at techguylabs.com. That's free. There's no sign up. There's no newsletter. I'm not going to spam you or anything. It's just there for your reference. You can go and you can look. We even put audio and video from the shows there after the fact. techguylabs.com. We will get to your calls momentarily. 8888 Ask Leo. Week after week. It's a miracle. She keeps showing up. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the unbreakable Kimmy Schaffer.
Why wouldn't I? It's the highlight of my week.
Oh, is it?
It is.
These days, it doesn't take much.
I get to get in the car and
Go
drive
somewhere
and go
See
somewhere that's
people.
not my room.
Yeah. No, that's true. These days, it's funny how life can kind of collapses on itself and the little things become more important. Mm-hmm. Nice glass of wine. Sunset,
the
a
consumption
walk.
of that has gone up quite a bit in the last 3 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we should take some calls just because, it's just for fun.
That's what
we're here for.
Yeah. Well, so Gary called yesterday and I said, call back.
Oh,
and he
good.
listened to me. So Gary in Bellflower, California is going to be doing some RV traveling because, again, you don't get on planes anymore.
I've been thinking about doing this, yeah. This is one way to get around.
And he wants to keep his...
Internet?
Yep.
Internet.
There you go.
Thank you, Kim.
You're welcome.
Hello, Gary, Leo Laporte, the Tech Guy. Welcome to the show. What am I doing wrong? Hello, Gary. Kim, are you still there?
I'm here.
Hello, Gary. All right, well, Kim, I'm going to put him back on hold. I don't hear him, but maybe it's me. I feel like I'm not hearing things. Did you hear him?
No, I didn't hear anything.
Wasn't
Like I
just
didn't
me?
even hear like background noise.
Yeah,
I
it
heard
was
nothing.
silence.
Yeah.
Okay,
So-
that could be us too. So let me try Annette in Tustin, California. Are you there, Annette?
Okay, we're having phone problems.
This is what we call phone problems. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put this on hold.
Yes.
I think I know how to do that. Yes. And what do we do, John? Do we reboot?
We reboot.
We reboot the machine? Should I reboot it here, John? He's gonna
John will do it.
He's going to go down the hall and kick it.
So can you go to commercial early?
Computers. No,
No, you can't.
You
You
think
could just
I
talk.
can't talk for hours on end?
I know. Remember that one time when the whole phone system in the other building, it was not our phone system. It was like the phone lines, and we just didn't have them for hours, and you just had to talk.
Somebody drove over a fiber cable, I think, and cut the phones to us. Yeah, that's all right. You know what? I like to talk.
Oh, they're gone. Oh, I feel so bad. Now everybody's gone.
Poor Gary.
Gary.
She's gone because we had to reboot it, right?
We did.
So we'll reopen the phones. That's all right. We'll do it again. Is it rebooted now or when is it?
No, he's working on it.
Okay.
feverishly.
So I'm going to answer a question from the chat room from Lewis, who says, where will Apple Silicon be manufactured? We don't know a lot about Apple Silicon. In fact, I think that's a placeholder. I don't think that's the name. Right now, Apple in its iPhones uses the A series. It started with the A4. We're currently, the highest level chip Apple makes today is the A12Z. I think it's Bionic. That's a terrible name, and I'm hoping Apple will not be continuing with this silly stuff. But at the same time, I don't, Threadripper, that's what AMD calls their chip. That's not a great name either. Threadripper, that's marketing. Just, a nice i7 isn't great either. i99U, or, that's not great either. So I'm sure Apple will come up with something. They won't manufacture them themselves. It's very unlikely. Most companies don't because it's expensive to build what we call a chip fab, short for fabrication facility. They used to be $1 billion to build a chip fab. I think it's more now. They're very expensive. So I think it's likely that Apple will contract this out. Right now, they get chips built. I think most of their chips are built by the Taiwan Silicon. It's hard. It's a lot of letters. The Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company. That's why they call it TSMC. That's out of Taiwan. They may get chips. I don't believe they make any chips in China. They may get chips made. South Korea also has some very good chip manufacturing capabilities. And actually, Intel makes its chips all over the world, including in Oregon. So it's possible that Apple will be looking at getting a fab in the U.S. But my guess is they'll go to TSMC. That's where they get most of their stuff done these days, in Taiwan. So it's an interesting world we live in because the chips that are running in our computers are kind of made. They're designed by one company, incorporated by another, made by a third. So in the case of the iPhone, Apple designs the chips, as they have since the very beginning. But they're designing them based on an architecture, a chip design that they license from that ARM company I was talking about. That's why they're called the ARM chips. And then they manufacture them with another company, in most cases TSMC. So it's, and I don't think that's going to change, actually. I think what Apple's doing currently is probably what Apple will keep doing. So the answer is more of the same, really. All right, we're going to keep working on the phones. We'll get them working. The good news is Sam Abuelsamid is in the house. He's ready to talk about the new Ford F-150 when we come back. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Time for Sam Abuelsamid. He is our car guy. Sam is a principal researcher at Guidehouse Insights, all about the auto industry. He also hosts the best automotive podcast in the world, Wheel Bearings, at wheelbearings.media. And he's sitting in front of a bright, shiny red Ford F-150, the best-selling pickup truck. Is it the U.S. or the world? Probably the world. Oh, Sam, I lost you. Now everybody's silent. I can't hear anybody. The whole system. I might have to talk this whole show. Sam, did you mute yourself? I heard him a second ago. We were having a nice conversation. There, something clicked. I heard a click. Are you there, Sam? So I'm going to read Sam's lips.
All right.
There we go.
All right. Unfortunately, something
mic
clicked
died
out with the Focusrite.
Yeah.
So I switched over to the mic and my
you scared
my
me
earbud.
because, as you know, the phones have died too. So I thought I was going to have to talk the whole show. So I remember going to the Rouge plant, the beautiful Rouge River plant in Dearborn, Michigan, where the F-150s are made. Are they the most popular? I know it's the most popular truck in the U.S.
Yeah, the Ford F series, the F-150 and the larger Super Duty trucks are the top selling brand in the U.S. and have been. They've actually been the top selling nameplate of any kind for like 37 or 38 years now.
Holy cow! Really?
And the top selling trucks for I think 43 years.
That's amazing.
Or between the F-150 and the Super Duties, they sell I think they sold a little over 900,000 last year, which is just in the U.S. alone.
Well, I
which
think
is
they
more
sold
than anything else.
They sold 10,000 of those to the Petaluma area, our little town here in Northern California. Everybody drives a pickup.
Yeah, well, the Rouge plant that you mentioned, they build one truck every 60 seconds.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So 60 trucks an hour.
If you ever get a chance, I know you've been there, Sam. If you ever get a chance to see that assembly line and go down on it, it's a beautiful thing. Gorgeous.
It is pretty impressive.
Yeah. Yeah.
But coming up later this summer, there's going to be an all-new F-150. It's time for a generational change again. And you know, when you look at pictures of this new one, you know, the front end looks a little different. The taillights are different. Overall, you know, the truck doesn't look dramatically different from the current generation one. But underneath the skin, there are so many changes to this thing. And there were actually two big announcements this past week. One was the F-150. And on Tuesday, there was also an announcement from NVIDIA and Mercedes-Benz. And both of them had something in common, that, you know, they're both adopting new electronic architectures for their vehicles that will enable over-the-air software updates. The Mercedes-Benz one is using NVIDIA's new Orin SoC, their system on a chip that they announced back in December. And it's going to be the first production application of that. That's not coming till 2024. But that chip is capable of 200 trillion operations per second.
Yikes.
Yeah, which is, you know, way faster than most supercomputers were, you know, 10 or 15 years ago. Oh,
that's right. Yeah.
And this is on a single SoC. Ford's not using that one in the F-150 yet because that's not going to be in production for a couple more years. But the F-150 also has a new electrical architecture, like a lot of new vehicles coming to market this year and next, that is enabled for complete over-the-air software updates of everything in the vehicle, just like Tesla's been doing for a number of years now. So this is going to be the first truck to get that capability. And Ford already announced one of the features that's going to be coming up. Last week we talked about the active drive assist system that's on the Mustang Mach-E. Well, it's going to be available on the F-150 as well.
Good.
So you'll be able to order the active prep package, you know, on the trucks starting this fall when they go on sale. And then middle of next year, when the software is ready, you'll be able to get that as an over-the-air update to enable hands-free driving capability on the highway. So this will be the first truck, well, depending on when GM gets Super Cruise launched in some of their trucks, but it'll be one of the first trucks to offer that kind of capability. And, you know, and it's just one of many new features, you know, software features that are going into this type of truck. And one of the things that they're doing to enable this is, you know, until now, you know, since the 1970s, we've been putting computers into vehicles. I started off with little low power computers, microcontrollers. And, you know, what's typically happened is, you know, all those get they come from different suppliers, you know, one for each different function on the vehicle. Now they're starting to consolidate these into what they call domain control computers. So much bigger, more powerful computers. So you have a whole bunch of functions in one, and it makes it easier to do over-the-air updates. And before I forget, I'm just going to respond to a comment in the chat from Pell. No, I did mean trillion.
Yeah, 200
teraflops. Will do 200 trillion operations per second, not billion.
Those are called teraflops. Modern, you know, we just announced the fastest supercomputer out there, which is 200 petaflops, which is a petaflop is 1,000 teraflops. So supercomputers are faster, but this was a benchmark for supercomputers not so long ago. 200 teraflops, 200,000 teraflops. I'm sorry, 200 teraflops. So that's pretty impressive. I think that's a nice computer, in that car. So besides self-driving, what else would they use it for?
So this will be powering, in the case of the Mercedes, it'll be powering all of the driver assist features and a whole bunch of other things. They haven't gotten into specific details yet on all the things that they're going to power off of this. But you know, one of the things that they've talked about, and Ford has talked about the same thing, is, you know, building in enough computing headroom into these things, enough extra compute power, so that they can start to enable other functions and sell features that you could buy as in-app purchases going forwards, you know, on new vehicles, essentially. So you'll be able to add the functions as they develop, much like Tesla's been doing for a number of years now. And improving the functionality, improving the safety, doing security updates. So there's a lot of things that they'll be able to do with it, and eventually, potentially they'll be able to do, run everything, the complete powertrain off of this, the body control, off of a single computer, and they'll still have multiple computers for redundancy, for safety capabilities. But there's a lot of potential for what you can do. But one of the things on the F-150, for example, is they're offering a hybrid version for the first time that will be really interesting for contractors, because a lot of times now, if you get a contractor, they come out, they may have a gas generator sitting in the back of their truck to power their tools on the job site.
Right.
The F-150 hybrid will be able to use that hybrid, the electric motor in the hybrid system, as a generator. So the standard setup will give you 2.4 kilowatt output from several AC power outlets in the bed of the truck, and then there's an optional 7.2 kilowatt version, which you can basically power a whole house off of this thing, and it includes a 240 volt outlet as well as a couple of 120 volt outlets to power all of your equipment.
Now is that this year or?
Yeah, that's going on sale this fall.
Wow. And then in a couple of years, they're going to go all electric, I hear.
Yeah, in 2022, they'll have a fully electric version, full battery electric version, and they haven't given details yet on that, but they posted a video last year of a prototype actually pulling a 1 million pound train loaded with F-150s.
Wow. I mean, I don't know if I need a truck to do that, but I'm sure a few people do. More than a few people do. That's pretty exciting. Sam Abuelsamid, he is a car guy to the bone, principal researcher at Guidehouse Insights. Don't forget his Wheel Bearings podcast at Wheel Bearings Media. Joins us every week. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you, Leo.
Have a great week. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. We'll see if we can get the phones working next. Yeah, so people looking at Rivian or the Cybertruck might well be saying, yeah, I'll just wait till the F-150.
Yeah, and there's some speculation that Rivian has actually been helping out Ford with the powertrain development for the F-150. We don't know for sure because Ford invested $500 million into Rivian, but the F-150 is not going to use the Rivian platform. They're using their own. They're using a version of the F-150 platform for that. But we should see that one sometime next year as a 2022 model. And then they're also doing their big transit van, their full-size cargo van, doing an electric version of that one as well.
Wow, that's a very powerful processor. Do we know what it is?
Yeah, so it's the Orin, the core of it. There's ARM CPUs in there. I can't remember. I'm not sure how many ARM cores there are in there, but I think there's 8 ARM cores in that one. Wow. In the 200 teraops version. There's also a lower power version for driver assist systems. But that combined with their new Ampere GPU microarchitecture. So about a month ago at the GTC keynote, Jensen Huang announced Ampere. That's their next generation GPU architecture. And so they're combining that with ARM cores and several other types of cores as well for some other neural processing stuff. Was it? I think 50. I recall it's like 56 billion transistors. It's some insane number of transistors. It's amazing.
It's really interesting to see these guys put this kind of horsepower, processing power, in a vehicle. Yeah. That must be is that going to be the platform for the Mach-E as well?
No. The what's in the F-150?
Yeah.
No, that won't be the Orin won't be in the Mach-E. Okay. The Orin chip, they're going to start sampling those next year in production.
It's a way off.
2022.
Okay.
So they may be using the current NVIDIA Xavier, which is a 30 teraop chip.
Right.
And that one's in production now. And there's a Chinese EV company called Xpeng that just launched a car that's the first production application of Xavier. And there's going to be several more coming Ford won't say what chips they're using in the Mach-E and the F-150. They're both using the same same electrical architecture. And I asked, and they declined to be specific about that. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's some NVIDIA silicon in there.
And that's part of the reason you get such high teraflops, is because these are really GPUs more than anything else.
Primarily GPUs, yeah.
Interesting.
And as well as some cores that are specifically optimized for doing neural network operations.
I think that's what's most interesting, and it really ties back to that Apple announcement, is these are custom. They're designed, purpose-built for an application, in this case, a vehicle. And that's what's, I think, exciting. The days of the Intel chip, which was general purpose chips, I think are numbered, because people can custom fab stuff if they're big enough, like Ford, to be much more efficient, much more powerful, because they're purpose built. They're ready to do this particular task. They're not going to be designing rocket ships on a truck. Hey, thank you, Sam.
Yeah. And the other thing is they're taking multiple different kinds of cores and combining them into a single die.
That's what's really interesting about this ARM SoC. Yeah. You get a really flexible platform. Very, very interesting. Thanks.
Right.
I'm going to be talking a lot because I don't have any phones. Bye. Take care. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Completely coincidental. Didn't know what Sam was going to talk about, but it really ties in to that conversation we were having earlier about what Apple is doing with its processors. What we're really seeing, and the real transition, is away from general purpose chips. You know, when IBM built its first microcomputer, the IBM PC in 1981, they were using off-the-shelf parts. You know, they didn't even have a GPU. It was a text-based computer. There's no graphics. So they would go and they looked and they see, well, it looks like price performance, we should probably go with the Intel 8080. And then I can't remember. There was some reason why they said, no, we can't do the 8080. We're going to have to go with the 8088. Not quite as good. 8-bit microprocessor designed in 1974. This is the beginning of what we call this x86 architecture. And for years, that's what people building computers and computing platforms, that's what they did. They went, it's like going to the store and they said, what's on the shelf today? Oh, that one looks nice. And they'd pick that because nobody had the capability to do their own thing. But that's what's really interesting about what Ford's doing with its F-150, what Apple's going to do with its Apple has been doing with the iPhone and then the iPad, and what it's going to start doing with the Macintosh, is custom-built systems on a chip. Chips that are designed for a very specific environment. And when you know exactly what that chip is going to be doing, in the case of the Ford, driving the car, controlling of telematics, you don't have to throw in as much extra general purpose stuff. So Ford will be using its own custom, essentially its own custom chips designed for it, not Intel chips from a company called Orin, that are specific to the needs of that vehicle. Just as Apple will be, and I think Apple's very happy about this. I think this is something they've wanted to do for a long time. Apple's going to be designing chips specifically for Mac OS and the hardware that they design. It's called vertical integration, and it's been the holy grail for Apple since day one. Steve Jobs always said you got to make the hardware and the software to make a perfect system. More recently, that's what Elon Musk has said about Tesla. They don't want to use somebody else's self-driving platform. He says, we need the data. We need to use our platform and our cars, collect all the data from that platform to make our platform better. It's custom. And this is something that's started to emerge over time. The ability to custom design chips for specific purposes, which will make them much better. But you still have a problem. Not so much with a truck, not with the F-150. The problem, you don't need to make the F-150 compatible with any other truck. But if you're making computers, you need to be compatible to some degree with other stuff so that you can interoperate, so that, more importantly, software developers can create programs easily that'll work. And Apple's, I think, said, here's what we need to be compatible with: the iPhone and the iPad. End of sentence. Although they are ARM chips, and they were very quick to show this at their event on Monday. Oh, okay, yeah, you can run Linux on it. But they didn't mention, by the way, that's interesting because Linux is available for those ARM chips. So being an ARM-compatible chip is important. They didn't mention Windows. Now, Microsoft does have a Windows on ARM platform. Microsoft saw this coming. They knew this was on its way. They even wanted to be, participate, I think. They're still doing off-the-shelf chips, though. They're not quite to the point where they're designing their own chips from the ground up. But Apple didn't mention Windows. Now, in later conversations, they have said, well, you'll be able to run Windows using an emulator, like there's software called Parallels and VMware. You'll be able to do that. They didn't mention their boot camp. For a long time, Apple users have been lucky. They could put a copy of Windows on their Macintosh and restart the computer and say, just be a Windows machine today, and it would be a Windows machine. Hardware by Apple, operating system by Microsoft. Doesn't look like that's going to be a possibility for various reasons. Some technical, I think maybe licensing also. So that we'll be watching that one with interest. It may be that Apple has finally said, we don't have to be compatible with PCs. We have to be compatible with the iPhone and the iPad. And they will be, by the way. These new Mac computers will run iOS software unmodified. Suddenly, you'll be able to run everything that you see in the App Store on your iPhone or iPad. You'll be able to run on your computer as well. That's interesting, too, isn't it? I think we got the phones working. Hallelujah. I don't have to talk anymore. But let me mention our sponsor, then we'll get to the phones finally. All right. Let's see. I think we even have the original Gary from Bellflower. Sorry about that, Gary.
That's all right, Leo.
Got you on.
You're worth hanging on for.
Thank you, sir.
And I really enjoyed the drone sounds you were making yesterday. Yeah.
Those drones, I swear, they're loud.
Yeah, it was fun, though.
What can I do for you today?
Well, we've sold our house, and we're going to be moving around a little bit between here and Arizona, and I'm looking for the best possible way to stay connected with the internet.
Right.
And I was looking at the iPad and with cellular, and I was looking at hotspots.
So it depends.
We have AT&T.
Yeah, it depends on, the iPad with cellular is great. I have one, and it just works. It works with Wi-Fi, but then if you're away from Wi-Fi, you'll have Wi-Fi at RV parks, places like that, but as you're driving or whatever, it still works. My wife uses it all the time when we're going places in the car. She can get work done, and I think that works really nicely. But it is limited to the iPad. You could turn your iPad into a hotspot. So in a way, the iPad is the hotspot. The advantage of a hotspot is more than one person can use it. So the hotspot is just a little credit card-sized device, connects to the LTE network, and then in most cases, 5 other people could use it. So your wife could have her iPad, you could have your computer or your phone. Everything can use it simultaneously. But it's not any faster. So in fact, I think the iPad might be a little faster than most hotspots because it has a kind of a high-end processor in there that I think is probably faster than the little thing, the dinky thing in the credit card.
Well, I have an older iPad, the first-gen iPad Pro, and with wireless, and it works great.
Yeah.
But I want to be able to get internet pretty much wherever we're at,
right,
in cellular range.
Yeah, so that's the only issue is does AT&T reach everywhere you're going to be? But it probably does. It's got a pretty good network.
Yeah, it does. I've traveled between here and Arizona before with no problems. But I've looked at AT&T's hotspot, and the only thing they have is the Netgear or the Nighthawk, and they don't really seem to back that up much, or they don't even stock it.
Yeah, generally the way to work a hotspot is to go to the carrier and say to AT&T, what do you recommend? Because they will have stuff that's designed to work. They probably sell it with their brand on it even. So that's what I would look at. But again, if you're going to get a new iPad anyway, $129 extra will get you the LTE service, and then you can, it's roughly the same as using a hotspot. In fact, you can be using it, and I think you can use it. And if your wife is using the hotspot, you both use it. You're sharing one connection, but that's the same as you would if you bought a hotspot. So it's really it's not much difference. It's more kind of, do you want to leave the iPad on? It will have to stay on for the hotspot, so that might drain its battery. I've used both. I don't think one is superior to the other. We carry with us when we go overseas the Skyroam Solus, which is exactly that. It's a hotspot, but it's designed to work with a number of carriers, international carriers, and you pay a day pass, and you can use, it's kind of limited bandwidth, but it's kind of convenient. So it's more about form factor than functionality. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. I like the idea. Are you going to get a new iPad? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, well, mine's the first gen, so it's getting kind of old.
Yeah, you need one anyway. Yeah,
it still works great, but I want something. What we want is something reliable.
I would. Yeah, it'll be reliable. It won't change.
Yeah, so you'd recommend a cellular over just a regular mobile wireless?
Still cellular. It's all cellular.
Yeah.
So unless you get a dish, some RVers will get a dish. I don't recommend it. It's very expensive. You got to aim it every time you stop. You can't really use it while you're driving unless you're lucky and you're driving in one direction for a long period of time.
Yeah, that's true. But we're not going to be RVing. We're just traveling on the road. So
I think anything that is getting you internet while you're out on the road is going to be cellular. It's going to be LTE.
Yeah, even the hotspot. But they don't. AT&T doesn't really carry anything.
They don't sell a MiFi?
No, but you got to go to Verizon. Has the MiFi,
yeah.
Verizon. AT&T doesn't have.
Really, they don't sell any. Boy, they have
the Nighthawk. They have the Netgear Nighthawk, but they don't seem to even carry that much of anything. They don't back it up.
Yeah, yeah. I'm looking on their website. They have a variety of them. The only difference is in the plan pricing. You might want to look at that because
you can get the iPad with $20 unlimited data on the iPad,
including hotspotting, because usually they limit hotspots.
Yeah, they didn't say yet. That was just unlimited for the iPad.
Inquire about that because it is unlimited on the iPad, but as soon as you are in hotspot mode, they usually have a limit on how much you can use that. Usually it's fine, but that's where, in other words, that's where you're going to see the big difference. And AT&T charges you a monthly fee, or charges you for the hotspot, and then charges you the plan's price for the hotspot. So it's a little hard to do all the math.
But it's a little more expensive, yeah.
I would guess it's a little more expensive. On the other hand, it might have higher bandwidth caps because they're expecting you to, they know that you're going to be using this. Looks like they sell, besides the Nighthawk, they have something called the Harman Spark.
I've seen that.
Global modem, the Arlo Go. That's a camera, though, it looks like. So that's not a hotspot. So I would, honestly, to me, check the only issue will be check the plan that you're going to get on because it's $20, but if you're hotspotting, I believe there's a different limit on it. So
I will check on that one.
Yeah,
then.
That's what I would check. iPad plan. I also use, I use AT&T on my iPad, and I think I use Google's Fi on that. The nice thing about Fi is it doesn't matter if you're hotspotting or not. It's $10 a gigabyte, period.
Just pay for the data.
Yeah. I'm sure AT&T has a limit on hotspotting.
Well, we wouldn't be doing a lot of the hotspotting, but my wife would be using her phone from time to time for her personal use. But it wouldn't be a lot. We just mostly want to get access to the internet regularly, reliably.
Yeah, so I think there might be a little confusion. Just to clarify, if you're not near a Wi-Fi access point, your internet is coming through the cellular network. Hotspot doesn't refer to that. It refers to simply the fact that you're connecting to another device to get the internet. So in the case of a iPad, you're using it as your hotspot, or you can buy these little MiFis or other devices and using that for the internet. But otherwise, it's the same. What's different is the plans. So anytime you're not on Wi-Fi, you're going to be using cellular data. You're going to be paying for it. So the thing to figure out, and of course they don't make this easy, they want to confuse you, is what it's going to cost and how much, what your bandwidth caps are. That's what really varies.
Nope, I see. I'm pretty clear on that.
Okay, good. Okay.
I appreciate it, Leo.
Hey, I'm glad you called.
A lot.
Thanks, Gary. Sorry to keep you on hold for so dang long. Have a great time.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, bye-bye. Well, hey, how are you today? Leo Laporte here, the tech guy dancing to the music. I have my own theme song. It's time to talk tech. 8888 Ask Leo, the phone number. The phones are working. Lines are back up. Thank goodness. I didn't want to talk for 3 hours. I could. As you probably know, I have the capability. We have the technology. 8888 Ask Leo. I'd rather talk to you. Website, techguylabs.com. Line 4, Annette in Tustin. Thank you for patiently holding on, Annette.
No problem, Leo. Thanks for taking my call.
My pleasure.
So I upgraded my Windows 7 PC to Windows 10 about 6 months ago.
Yay.
Everything's been good.
Good.
Until about a week and a half ago.
Uh-oh.
I booted up my computer, and the Windows icon came on the screen, and there's usually a little progress indicator, little dots chasing each other around in a circle.
Yeah.
And that didn't happen.
Uh-oh.
And I waited and waited and waited. So I powered it off, powered it back on, it started up normally. Great. Well, that's the scenario every day now.
You got a double clutch to get it started, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm a little worried that one day it's just not going to start up.
Yeah.
So I did some looking on the internet, and there's all kinds of advice out there about unplugging USB devices and rebooting or disabling fast startup or doing a registry.
All of those are accurate.
Okay.
So there's the reason is it could be a lot of reasons for it. Certainly USB devices can halt boot. So if you've got an external drive or something plugged in, it's worth because that's the easiest thing to do. I always start with the easy stuff, right?
Right.
So let's unplug the USB devices, see if that stops it. Certainly turning off Windows Fast Boot is a good idea. Windows Fast Boot's a terrible feature that should not be on Windows. And it doesn't speed things up. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
It's dopey. But honestly, the symptom you described implies that the first time it's not warm enough. It's booting up from a cold start. The second time it's gotten a little warmer and it's doing better. That is not unusual with computer hardware, especially with spinning disks. Do you have the old style hard drive, not a solid state drive?
So I have a spinning disk. I do have a small solid state drive, which at least when I was running Windows 7, it would boot off that drive.
Okay.
But I don't know what it's doing now.
Yeah, that's that Intel hybrid drive, probably.
Yeah.
That's an interesting question. The way this weird hybrid drive is supposed to work is a very small. It was a solution when SSDs were very expensive.
Right.
So it's very small. You've heard me talk. You're obviously sophisticated. You know all about all this stuff. So if this is not for your benefit, this is for everybody listening. But the idea was, SSDs are too expensive. We'll give you a teensy one, like a 64 gig SSD. Too small to really be useful. But we'll put the things you need fastest, we'll put there, and the rest of it can be on the spinning drive, the less expensive spinning drive. It's not a good solution. And nowadays it's really better to use an SSD because the prices have fallen. What it sounds like to me, a solid state drive wouldn't have this issue, but a spinning drive could. As it's cool, just the alignment is slightly different as it warms up. Oh, yeah, I can read that sector. If you have a sector that's hard to read, sometimes as it warms up, it'll be easier to read. And this is a very common problem with spinning hard drives. So, honestly, I would try all the little things like the turn off fast boot and the USB. Everything you've read, try, as long as it's not significantly changing your system. But ultimately, it might be that a new hard drive helps. The other, and this would be a chance for you to put a nice fast SSD in there. And they're not expensive, $100.
Okay.
And you can do it. Is it a laptop or desktop?
It's a desktop.
Yeah, easy on a desktop. Easy peasy. The other thing, sometimes the power supplies will do this as well.
Okay.
And the power supplies, They're easy to replace, but a little risky because they have capacitors in them. They can hold a charge. They're not expensive. They're actually less probably than the hard drive replacement, but it involves opening the case, unscrewing some stuff, putting a new one in. It's a little trickier. But if the power supply is flaky and you're getting low voltage, and then the next time you turn it on, you get sufficient voltage for everything to start up, it starts up, that's fine. One way to fix this is just don't turn your computer off. Hello? Oh, no. Oh, no. I think the phone died again. Now, we have a fairly complicated phone system. And one of the pieces of that phone system is a voice over the internet provider. And we've checked our systems at the studio, rebooted them, everything's fine. But you hear that sound of silence? That means the trunk died. The VoIP service that we've used died, and we got the engineers. That one goes back down to you, Professor Laura, and the engineers in the Premier Network, because they are the people who lease that. Oh, she's back. Annette's back.
I'm back.
Did you do anything, or it just came back?
It just came back.
Okay, yeah, it's that line. Good. Oh, whew. So, wow. What did I ask you before we were so rudely interrupted? I can't remember. But, yeah, I wouldn't do the power supply yourself. You sound fairly technical. If you feel comfortable doing it, that might be worth it. Getting a new hard drive, the nice thing about that is it's not a bad thing to do anyway. It's going to speed you up a lot. How big is the hard drive? And now she's gone. There's a technical term they use for this in the computer business. It's flapping. That's when something goes up and down and up and down. It kind of is like it's, flapping in the wind. It's flapping. This is separate from the connection we have to Premiere. As obviously you still hear me. Professor Laura still hears me. It's just the phone system, which is a completely separate system. So,
maybe a read.
I guess this would be a good time to talk a little bit about our fine sponsor. And wait a minute, is she back? Laura,
I'm back. You're
back. There's just the slightest hiss when you're on the line. It's very, very slight that I can hear. It's like suddenly you go away and then you come back. I think it's going to keep happening. So,
I think so.
How big is your hard drive? Is it big?
Yeah, I don't remember how big it is. Several gig.
Yeah. You can get a terabyte SSD, which would improve the performance of the whole machine for like $150.
Okay.
So try all the other stuff because that's free. But I think
Even the registry edit, they were talking about.
don't do it. No registry editing. What's happening is, I'll tell you what's happening. I know what's happening. Windows goes through this process of booting up. It gets right to the part where it starts to load in from the hard drive and it stops. And the system's going, gimme. It's crashing. Now, it could be damaged also. I mean, one thing you might want to try is reformatting the disk and starting over. But spinning disks get bad sectors. That's what happens. They wear out. How old is the system?
Oh, it's probably about 6 years old.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's about right. So what happens with spinning hard drives is if they don't die right away, like in the first 3 months because of manufacturing defects, they go pretty well for the first few years. And then this is from a study done by, I can't remember, was it Google or Backblaze, somebody like that. Then they start dying at the rate of 7% a year from then on. So after like year 3. At 7%. So it's just because they're wearing out. You won't have that same problem with a solid state drive. Doesn't mean that's what's going on. It's just one of the possibilities, but it's the most common by far. Back up before you do that, okay?
Yes.
All right.
I actually backed up the first time I did this. I'm like, make sure I have my data.
I can tell, Annette, you're clearly a sophisticated user, so you're doing all the right things. Yeah. I'm sorry that's happening.
I'll try these other things, and then I'll look at getting a solid-state drive in.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, when you did the upgrade to 10, did you do the free one?
I did.
And it worked?
And it worked fine.
And it authorized and everything?
Uh-huh.
Isn't that great?
All perfect. It's wonderful.
Don't tell anybody at Microsoft. They must know by now. They just left it on. I think they just said, no, you have to buy it. Wink, wink, wink. Yeah. And they just left it on.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
I'm happy that it was still there.
Woohoo. Yeah, you could try, before you buy a drive, you could try a clean install. But because it's that dumb Fusion thing that I never liked that hybrid drive technology anyway, this might be a time to just take that all out and start over. Thank you, Annette. I'm glad you hung in there through the phone woes. Whoa. I don't know what's going on. Technology never works, does it? Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Great song from Professor Laura. Now, Professor Laura, ever since you got that degree, I know you're the musical director here at the Premier Networks. But are you putting on your hard hat and going down underneath the studios to see how the phone lines are, or is that not your...
the cobwebs and everything.
That's not your job, huh? Okay. You got a little hammer on your tool belt there, and just go down there and see what that phone line's doing down there. See if the rats got to it. I could try another call. Why not? Let's see. Well, I hear the magic hiss. It must be Ken in L.A. Hello, Ken.
Hi, Leo. I really appreciate you taking my call, and I want to say hi to Kim. When she answers, she just sounds so frazzled or running so fast, I forget to say hi, Kim.
Oh, well, she's got a lot of calls. She's juggling a million things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look at her. She's so frazzled.
Yeah, I understand. Listen, I've been practicing in front of a mirror because the few times I've called you, I've never been able to get my question across.
Oh, I'm going to stop and let you answer. That's my fault. I apologize.
No.
All yours.
No. I've got two questions that I think are kind of quick. I'm very disabled budget-wise because I've been out of work for a while.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm using old laptops. I've got 3 now, and I want to give one to a friend of mine who's in a similar condition. It's an old Toshiba satellite that I've loved, and I just recently, going back, it stopped getting.
And there it goes. This time, we had a click before we lost Ken, who has never. This is kismet. This is fate. He has never been able to get his question in on the show, and boom. I can see, because Kim talked to him, that she says he wants to talk about this Toshiba notebook. He installed a new OS, but he can't get online, can't get the internet. And there's, we get a lot of calls like this. In fact, Annette's call was kind of like this too, where you have a behavior you don't want, and you have a hideously complex piece of equipment in front of you. If you think about it, your personal computer, your Toshiba, your desktop, even your phone, is more complex than anything else in your life. Maybe your car, maybe not. It is insane. And unfortunately, the surface that we look at, the keyboard, the mouse, the monitor, don't really reflect that complexity and don't give us much insight into it. So the whole trick with a PC whisperer is to listen for the little hints that a computer gives you to steer you in the right direction. You have to understand how it works, how the different pieces fit together, how the process works, and then listen for the little hints. So what could go wrong if you're not getting internet on a computer? Well, lots, right? Because it's, as I said, it's hideously complex. So, Ken, you've got your internet service provider. So he's back. Hi, Ken. Oh, he's gone again. You got this is us, by the way, not Ken's internet service provider. So you got your internet service provider. Then you got your wires into the house. Then you've got your router. Then you've got the Wi-Fi or the wires to your computer. You're getting about one word in before this is literally flapping, where it goes up and down, up and down, up and down. So I'll keep going until you come back. And then, so the things to check are the obvious ones. The first thing, when you can't get internet on a device, one easy test, one thing I always do is say, well, is it working elsewhere? So if your internet's working on other computers in your house, good. All right, you got internet. That router's the same router, good. It's working. The Wi-Fi, you connect the same way, good, it's working. So now we start with the Toshiba. It's very possible, especially with a really old device, that the wireless radio in the Toshiba is gone. That Toshiba will probably have an Ethernet jack. So one way to see if that's the issue is to plug in a cable. And if you can get online with the cable, but you can't get online with Wi-Fi, now you see what we're doing? We're troubleshooting by eliminating possibilities. But if you can't get online with the cable either, good, all right. So now we know it's not the Wi-Fi radio, it's not the cable. Most likelihood, because those are separate subsystems, Wi-Fi and Ethernet, most likely in that case, it's higher up the chain. In fact, almost certainly not the hardware level, but the software level. Now we have to look at the settings. We have to look at the drivers. We have to, and that's where it gets a little complicated. So troubleshoot by seeing if other things work. Try different cables. Try Ethernet versus Wi-Fi. See if other devices can use that router. That's the process. And it's kind of it's easy for me because it's not my system that's not working. So I can kind of take some pleasure in the troubleshooting process. When this happens to me, I'm screaming, I'm yelling, I'm tearing my hair out. I'm cranky as heck. My wife knows, step back, get away from Leo, because he's cranky now, because he's going, I don't know where the internet. Oh, and then the whole line went down. Everything's gone. So now this is when I am going to start getting cranky. My wife is going to go home. Kim might want to step back. Here's the good news. We do have a connection all the way to Germany via Skype to our photo guy, Chris Marquardt. The photo sensei will be joining us in just a little bit. And Water Guy in the chat room says, maybe it's time to fire up the ham rig, Leo. Yeah, maybe. We can take questions from amateur radio operators. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Stay right here. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Time for our photo sensei, Chris Marquardt at sensei.photo. Hello, Chris Marquardt.
Hello, Mr. Leo Laporte. How are you doing?
Is it all right if I call you my photo sensei?
Oh, absolutely. I love that.
Sensei, everybody knows who watched The Karate Kid. Sensei is your teacher, right?
It's simple as that. It means teacher. It doesn't have any higher meaning than that.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been doing for almost ever, teaching photography. So
do you ever say wax on, wax off, anything like that?
No, I don't do that. I don't do that.
Mr. Miyagi of photography. Let's talk about talking about photography, because you do a podcast about photography, many of them.
Yes.
Probably the longest running photo podcast, tipsfromthetopfloor.com. You also do The Future of Photography and others from time to time. So you spend a lot of time talking about photography. Even on this show, you talk about photography.
Yes, and I want to talk about how to talk about photography, because I'm, in addition to all these things, I have one little other side project, and that's called PickOnePhoto. And you can find this at PickOnePhoto.com, which is a little video series where I talk to people about a photo.
Oh,
so
I love that.
The talking about photos is something that, I mean, people might wonder, why is that important? They're to look at, right? They're not there to be talked about. But what I realized at one point, that the moment I started discussing photos, talking about photos with others, and that's kind of the important thing, I started understanding it much better. I started getting new ideas in my head. My photography started to change the moment I began discussions. So I had this project, this PickOnePhoto thing. Again, this is just two people talking about a photo for half an hour. It's but it is amazing the things you can learn, and not just for your photography, but in general, when you talk to someone. And photography is a wonderful, let's say, a wonderful hook, a wonderful thing to use that for. And we get this on the workshops all the time when we do a review, a critique session. It's not really a critique session. It's more a group review session where people show their photos and then everyone talks about them. That is, everyone gives me the feedback that is by far the most valuable thing from the entire weekend of a photo workshop. So talking about photos changes something. Now the question is, how do you talk about photos? Because have you been on Flickr or on any other photo platform? Normally what you get is a nice photo.
Yeah, that's not good.
I like it.
Useless.
These kind of things.
Yeah.
They don't really help you that much. So I think it's helpful to talk a bit about what questions you could ask about a photo in a discussion, and maybe even make that a thing. We do this here. Monica and I, we do this here. We talk about photos. We show each other photos that we took, and then we discuss them. And questions like, let's say, why this photo? Why not one of the other 100 that you took on that day? You'd be surprised at the answers, because at the moment you ask this kind of a question, the other person has to try to figure out by themselves why what triggered them, what made them press that button. You normally don't think about these things, but the moment you get the question like this, you start thinking about it, and it changes something. There's stories around photos. I mean, let someone tell you a story about a photo. That's what we do on PickOnePhoto. You find out what the story is behind a photo, who was involved, like who else was there. Because when you see a photo, you never really see what's going on behind the camera. So that can be really interesting. We recorded a PickOnePhoto episode today where we talked about a photo that I took up in Lukla in the Himalayas, in this little mountainous airport. And it's a photo from above onto the runway of that airport. But what you don't see is that there were hikers behind me, and I'd say 20 hikers looking as well. So the photo feels different than the reality of the photo. A good question would be, where did it take place? What location? Maybe even if we can travel again one day, what continent was it on? What city? When did it take place? That is also gonna help you place that thing. What year, what time of year, what season, if it's not clear from the photo, maybe even time of day, depending on how you take a photo. It might not be obvious when it was taken, and that might be important information. I like asking questions about composition of a photo. So why did you put that tree over there and not over there? And often the answer will be tough because you just compose. You don't really think about these things. But the moment you start making this a bit of a conscious effort, then again, you will question things. You will start thinking about things in a different way. And the next time you want to make a composition, you might make this a deliberate effort. Oh, there's a tree. Let me think about, where can I put this in the photo? Let me try different placements. Good question is, what does it make you feel? What emotions does the photo evoke to you? Because the person that took a photo is very likely going to have a different approach to that photo than someone else is looking at it. If you show a photo to someone else, they will have a different access to that photo than you, because you were there. You were in that place. That place had, I don't know, sounds and wind and smells and whatever. And the person who looks at that photo doesn't have any of that. So for them, it is going to be a different kind of photo. A question I like to ask is, what changes did you make? Did you make any changes to what you're looking at before taking the photo? Maybe did you take something out because it was way?
You know what I'm always interested in? I'm always interested in why that photo.
Yeah, why that photo? That is the fundamental question. What triggered you? What made you press the button?
Because I have trouble, You know, I try to walk around looking for photos, but I have trouble knowing when to take the photo. You know, what it is that's going to make a great photo. If I get a good photo, it's pretty much by chance. So that's, to me, the most important question when you're talking to these great photographers. What's the process? And I've watched great photographers, and there's definitely something going on, right? Some of them go around with a little frame.
Well, you know, the good thing is you and Lisa are both photographers. So next time you talk, you have a photo. Hey, show it to each other, and then discuss it. Spend 5 minutes on that photo and figure these things out. It will change your approach to the photos. Of course, I'm also often interested in the technology. What tech was used to take that photo? Camera, lens, accessories.
I'm way too interested in that. I need to stop paying too much attention to that.
I'm curious in what was anything done in post processing.
Yeah, you do want to know that.
Did this guy really look that dramatic, or did you, I don't know, pull the contrast a bit? So yeah, there's just so much to be found out about photos, and it really helps talking about them. It does in every respect, and you will become a better photographer if you do that.
I started using Photoshop's new camera for the iPhone, and it lets you do weird things to your photos. So you might ask me, were there really flying fudgesicles in that picture, or did you add those later?
Well, like some answers are obvious, I guess.
Chris Marquardt, if you would like to get better at photography, there's no one better as a teacher or a sensei. Go to sensei.photo for one-on-one instruction and more. Chris, have a great week. We'll talk to you in 2 weeks, taking next week off for the Independence Day holiday. Let me see you do it now. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. You want to see a tech guy sweat? Just keep listening, because the phones are still, I don't think they're really working. Kim is answering them, and we'll keep checking. If you're on the line, hang on the line. But it does seem to be going up and down, and that doesn't make for a very good conversation. It's flapping, as they say. Chris Marquardt, our photo guy, gives us an assignment every week. Let me tell you about the assignment this month. We have a couple more weeks to take our outside pictures. We're down to the letter O, and I think we're up to outside. So what you do is you take a picture. You can do it with a fancy camera. You can do it with your simple camera. You can do it with an Instamatic. You can do it with your phone. It does not matter. And I'll tell you, I've learned that. That's one of the lessons I've learned from all of this. The eye is what matters in photography, not the technology, not the stuff. So I would like you to use your eye. And I'm not going to worry about how you do it. And take a picture illustrating the word, the concept, the idea outside. Upload it to Flickr and submit it to our Tech Guy group. Before you do, tag it so we know it's for this month's assignment. TG Outside. TG Outside. Now, I note that Renee Silverman, our moderator at the Tech Guy group, says that June 14th was the deadline. Obviously, that's not the case. Oh, no, I see. She's saying any pictures taken before June 14th. That's when we started. Okay. So in a couple of weeks, probably it won't be next week because of the 4th of July, 2 weeks from now, I think Chris will pick 3 of the photos tagged TG Outside and talk about them, which is always fun. Talk about the photos. Thinking about what Chris was talking about earlier, if you feel like it as you submit a photo to the Tech Guy group, put in the notes, put some information about why you took this photo, what was happening. The kinds of things Chris was asking his photographers. A little background behind it. That would be kind of fun. Chris has never asked for that before, but I think I'd like to hear that. It's always fun to take those photos. TG Photos. What do you think, Kim? Is it? Oh yeah, it's down again. There's nobody on the line. Is it? Did you go home? There's no one there. Kim has deserted she's deserted the ship. Okay, she just came back. What have we decided?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I take them and I can barely get the question from
and then
them.
It clicks off and it's flapping. Yeah.
So
the service that we use is something's gone wrong. Something's gone horribly wrong. Kim, take the rest of the day off. I will talk for the next hour and 10 minutes I will blather on. There's many things to talk about. I have no lack of things. Just I'll tell you what. Don't even try calling in because there's no point. But, Kim, keep an eye on it, right?
I'll keep an eye on it.
And as soon as our fine folks at the NOC, the Network Operations Center for Premier, say, well, Voyant's working again, we will announce it on the air and we'll take the calls.
No, if people want to write questions in the chat room, I'll try and gather
I can see
them.
those
You can
too.
see those.
Yeah. I don't need no questions. I can talk for hours. You know what? There's a lot of stuff to talk about. There's a lot of news, believe it or not. I was a little worried with the quarantine that the whole tech community would, shut down. Not true. And you know who hasn't shut down at all is the hackers. They've spun up. What an opportunity for them, right? Australia's government and institutions are being targeted by sophisticated state-based cyber attacks. For example, this week, the Prime Minister of Australia, Scott Morrison, said they were being attacked. They believe it's by another country. Who do you think? All levels of government, essential services, and businesses. This is about as rotten as you can get. This is about as horrific as you can get. Here we are in a global pandemic, a virus that knows no national boundaries, knows no politics, knows nothing about leaders or hacking. It's affecting us all, and people are dying. And, hey, here's an opportunity to try to take down systems. Come on, guys. Shouldn't there be a worldwide truce? Morrison would not say which state, although I'm guessing they have a pretty good idea. No data breaches, no personal data breaches. That's one good thing about all of this is that this has been going on for so long now. We are all a little bit better prepared, one would think anyway, against these kinds of cyber attacks. He also said it's not just in Australia, it's global. And this isn't much of a surprise. He says the reason he thinks it's a state attack is because of the scale, the people being targeted, and the technologies being used. You can almost always tell. I'm going to guess. He's not going to say because he's prudent, but I don't have any political constraints on me. It's almost certainly China. It's almost certainly China. But who could do these things? And by the way, we're under attack all the time. Russians have been attacking us for some time. China, Russia, Iran has, surprisingly, a very good hacker corps, very talented hackers who are very good at this. North Korea also does it, but I have to say they seem a little less skilled. The people I always worry most about are Russia and China. And these are big enough states. They have sufficient resources to really do some nasty hacking. Oh, who else does this? Oh, a country you might have heard of, the US of A. We have some of the best. Of course we do. Recent study investigation of the NSA and CIA hacking tools. You remember the release of the CIA hacking tools some years ago? The Vault 7 leak. It's a big deal because those tools were then used by lesser skilled criminal hackers to do all sorts of things. They still are. A lot of ransomware still takes advantage of exploits discovered by the CIA. Also, this past week, the report of the Inspector General on this revealed that perhaps the CIA spent more of its energy creating these tools than protecting them. A workplace culture in which the agency's elite hackers prioritized building cyber weapons at the expense of securing their own systems. The breach, which happened actually, I think it happened in 2016, but was discovered in 2017, of the Vault 7 tools was a ton of very sophisticated tools. You can kind of tell the state hacking tools. There are a couple of things that are giveaways. The number one reason is that states are going after different information. So criminal hackers want to make as broad an attack as they can. If they're spreading ransomware, they want to get it on as many machines as they can, right? They make more money that way. Sometimes they target a company, a school district, a city. That's going to be very lucrative too. And targeted attacks are much more dangerous. They're much more effective. State attacks are almost always targeted. In fact, the attacks are almost always designed to be used once against one person and then thrown away. So there's a certain feel that you get. I feel like we should have had a truce. I'm very naive, aren't I? This would be a good time. You know, we're working on this virus. Let's all work together, try to solve this problem. And then, you know, we can resume our hacking and, you know, when it's all fixed. How about that, guys? Let's just take it easy and not be doing so much hacking right now. What do you say? Well, hey, how are you today? Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Time to talk computers, the internet, home theater, digital photography, smartphones. You got your smartwatches. You got your, home theater, anything with a chip in it, any technology. We talked about Ford F-150s in hour number one. They're super chips that Ford's going to start putting in them. 8888 Ask Leo is the phone number, 888-827-5536. I mentioned that because even though we haven't been able to take phone calls for a while, I think Kim Schaffer tells me that the phones are now working. Right, Kim?
For the moment.
Oh, you are such an optimist. Well, let's try it anyway, because I hate leaving people on hold and not taking the call. So I'm going to, I think
Bob's been very persistent.
All right,
yes.
Let's see if we can get Bob in here. Hi, Bob. Leo Laporte, the tech guy from Boston.
Oh, Leo, can you hear me okay, Leo?
I hear you fine.
Oh, great. I'm about a half an hour away from your mother up here in Massachusetts.
Love it. I miss New England so bad. How's the weather? I think you had a big storm, right?
Yeah, currently we're expecting heavy thunderstorms right now, but up until this point we're a little low on the rain, but great weather up here in New England.
Oh, I love it. I miss Boston. I love Boston. What can I do for you?
Well, I listen to you every week, all the time on all the podcasts and just love you dearly. And with your recommendation, I went out and bought the Eero's mesh network.
Oh, good.
And I bought the large setup, I guess, with the gateway and the two remotes, and it worked great for about 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden it started dropping, and
well, that's not good.
For some reason I started having trouble, and I said, well, maybe I need another device. So I went on and bought another gateway. I hope that was the correct thing to do. Another $200. And I put that in, and I only. I have a standard-size house, and
you probably. How big is your house? 2,000 square feet thereabouts?
Yeah, about that. Sure.
In theory, you'd only need the base unit that connects to your cable modem or DSL modem, and one beacon. Two would do it.
I had two. Then I bought a third gateway.
Yeah. It sounds like overkill. Make sure that second gateway it knows it's on a bigger network. It probably does. Eero's smart about that. So you joined it to your existing network, right?
I did.
Because the good thing about Eero is, unlike normal modem and routers, it's smart enough that it says, oh, there's a network. I'm not going to be doing DHCP. I'm going to let the boss do it, and I'll just be a additional unit. So that's good. The other good thing about it is that the Eero, now some people think there's a bad thing, but the way Eero's configured, the home office can see what's going on. They have a lot of information. So I would call Eero because they will tell you why it's dropping. They will know. They have logs. They can even see, and some people, this bugs people, and something you should be aware of. They can see what devices are on your system. They can see what devices might be causing problems. The whole system is designed for that.
And that's the first thing I did, Leo. Unfortunately, probably because of this virus, I've called 3 separate times, and I was on hold more than 2 hours.
Oh, no.
And I called right the second they opened up in your Pacific time, so I can't imagine they've had so many calls. And I just can't. And I've written them emails, and there's just zero support going on right now.
That's very disappointing. You know, when I first got the Eero, the support was excellent. It wasn't yet an Amazon company. I hope Amazon's purchase hasn't affected it, although I do have to say, I think your instinct that it might be related to COVID, the customer service across the board is terrible these days. Yeah, and I think it's because people are doing it at home. Their systems aren't working well. I don't know. Maybe a lot of people are out. That's not when I first started using the Eero. I haven't had to call them in a while, but they were right on. They would stay on the line with you. They would fix the problem. They were really, really good. So I'm very sorry to hear that. That's not good.
Can't seem to figure it out. I have and I run a Macintosh system, and I run the Ring doorbell, and the Ring doorbell seemed to be working out quite well. I've certainly got better coverage, and that was another device that you recommended a while ago, and I love them like that.
Also an Amazon. Both those companies. You know, if you want to. If you want to get bought by Amazon, you should advertise on my podcasts, because it seems like Audible, Ring, Eero, they were all advertisers. They all got snapped up by Amazon. And, incidentally, as soon as Amazon bought them, they stopped advertising. So I don't know what that means. Not that I'm bitter. So make sure that it's not your router, okay? So the first thing I don't mean router, your cable modem. Make sure it's not the internet service provider, because that's a symptom that we see frequently.
That from Comcast also.
Okay.
That was another first thing I did. I unplugged everything. I reset everything. I called Comcast. They said everything's working. It's funny, when it comes in from the router from my cable modem, it goes directly to the computer. That has been rock solid. And then the Wi-Fi network is the only thing that keeps on.
Oh.
It goes good for a day or two, and then it just drops out again.
So your Ethernet is always good.
Always good.
Always good. That's a good sign. So that means of course, and I was talking about this last hour. This is how we diagnose this thing. That means your internet service is good. It means your internet cable modem, your connection is good. It even means the Eero is still routing properly, so it's not dying. It just means your Wi-Fi is dying. That's that could be an issue in the Eero. It could be you also. Do you have nearby neighbors?
I do. You know, they're not exactly right on top of me, but they're probably, say, 150, 200 feet away. And
that shouldn't be a problem.
I went on Eeros, and I made sure that nobody else was coming close to my network, and I blocked them. So there's no issue there that I know of.
Well, it's not even that, but you can. They're sad that these are sold, but they are by many companies. Very powerful multi-MIMO routers that will actually improve your internet by killing your neighbor. So this is not a neighborly thing, but if they're more than 150 feet away, this should not be the problem.
Yeah, I had Apple networks before, and they were all working great, with the exception of some of my Ring doorbell video that was the furthest away kept on dropping out. So that's why I switched over to your recommendation, the Eero connection.
Yeah.
There's one other thing that I'm just going to throw it out there, and I have the antivirus malware bytes on my Macintosh. That shouldn't have an effect for it.
Normally not. Although any security software sometimes. Malwarebytes does not, because Malwarebytes is not watching your internet connection unless they've changed it.
Exactly.
It's scanning your drive. But there are security packages I don't recommend because they can inhibit your internet. When you unplug and if you reboot the Eero, master Eero, not the beacons, but the master, does that fix it?
Something I kind of rebooted them all at the same time.
You don't need to do that, but next time it happens, unplug the gateway.
Gateway, okay, sure.
And plug it in again. Wait a few seconds, plug it in again. If that fixes it, then almost certainly there is a problem with it. And I think you got to get Eero on it, because their technicians can dial in and see the logs, and they can actually diagnose the problem. And in most, I would hope they would say, "Oh yeah, we're going to send you a new one." You might also take that new one that you bought and put it where the old one was.
Oh, that's great. That's an excellent idea. Sure.
Yeah. Take the old one out of service, even.
Okay. Yeah.
Because it'd be my guess. It's not the beacons. It's the gateway. And so,
you're right. That could be. I could switch those around and give that a try.
Yeah, leave the old gateway out of the loop just in case it's doing something bad.
Yeah.
See if that fixes
Sure.
things. I would try that. Yeah. And I'm really sorry because I recommended Eero based on my own experience. We still use it, and I have had very good customer service. This was pre-COVID, of course, and pre-Amazon. So I don't know if maybe Amazon's degraded the service or maybe just COVID has.
The first 2 weeks, I couldn't believe it. My video that normally takes probably 30 or 40 seconds to come alive, with the new mesh network, it was like 3 or 4 seconds. Yeah. Bingo, I was there, and I said, wow, thank you very much there.
That's one of the good things that Eero does. It's an automatic quality of service adjustments. They know what's watching, what's not watching. They know what's going on, and they're very good about responding to those things.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I hope it's a bad unit that they'll replace. That'd be my hope. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll switch those around. And
you remember, you're going to in effect set up your network again, because when you swap that gateway, now it needs to be the boss.
Sure.
So you're going to have to go through that initial setup again.
I will. Okay. Well, great. Well, thank you very much, Rush. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Bob. Have a great day. Dittos.
You too.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
We were joking, I think off the air, but Bob heard it while he was on hold, that it seemed like the phone lines were working, but I think all the callers are calling for another show, the Rush Limbaugh program, also on this network. But fortunately, Rush is not here on Saturday, so I think they're all for me. He has a different number, but you never know with these phone systems. We'll get back to the phones. They're working. Hallelujah. We got them working again. Thank you to the Network Operations Center. Those guys do a great job. Keep on trucking, baby. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Dr. Mom has given me a link on how to switch your Eero gateway from Eero.com. So we'll put that in the show notes. That's where we put all the additional material from the show. Everything I talk about, plus at techguylabs.com. In fact, you don't have to write anything down as you're listening. Just remember that, techguylabs.com. And, I'm not charging you. I'm not making you sign up. It's free. Just wander in. There's a search there. You can find it. We have every show. This is episode 1708. Audio and video from the shows are there. Text saying what we talked about, what the answers were, links and so forth. And it's all divided up by show, and then each show by hour, and then each hour by segment. So it's all easy to find. techguylabs.com. Linda in Los Angeles, Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Thanks for being so patient. Hi, Linda.
Oh, I've been trying to get in for weeks. So when I heard you were having phone problems, I took my shot.
Here's my shot. I'm not throwing away my shot. Well, what can I do for you, Linda?
Well, I've got a question just about Chromebooks for someone like me. Let me tell you a little about my background in computers. I feel like I really grew up with computers, even though in the 80s I was in my 30s. My early 80s, I was working for the Naked Mini Company. Are you familiar with
the Naked Mini Company?
That was computer automation. A man named David Mesvin who invented the little Naked Mini computer that went into those first ATM machines.
Oh, my goodness.
When we first started seeing everybody lining up at the Bank of America.
I'll be diggity danged. Wow.
And all the guys that were actually the computer types in there, of course, they had a huge mainframe in a cold room, but they were all using Trash 80s, the TRS 80s from Radio Shack. So that was the early computing days.
Yeah, no kidding. That's really cool. That is really, you have a very important place in computer history. In fact, I'm looking at a picture of Dave and the crew in their traditional skinny black ties, white shirts, and suits in front of an IBM, looks like a System 370, and there's a little teletype next to them, the Naked Mini Company. Wow.
Yeah.
That's some history. That's so cool.
And then in the mid-'80s, I was learning on IBM XTs. Those were out by then. And I always knew 8088 meant something. So, I always figured out your phone had to be that. Anyway, I was learning how to use WordPerfect. So I kind of grew up with the computers. And by the late 80s, I was working for Peter Norton.
Oh, my goodness. Did you know Peter, or is it just had he left by then?
I actually was hired into the R&D department. It was the wrong job for me, so I didn't stay that long. But I was always in the meetings. I was the one that somebody had to take notes, right?
Yeah, and of course it's going to be the woman in the group, right?
Of course.
Yes.
Not the computer programmer. We did have one lady that was a computer programmer.
Nice.
But yeah, and they were spoiled rotten. But he was very generous guy.
Peter was a great guy. And of course, he sold the company, Symantec, and
of course,
it became a different company. But when it was the Peter Norton company, pretty impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, and somehow I ended up with his old Osborne computer.
What? You have Peter Norton's Osborne?
I don't anymore. I wish I did.
Wow.
Anyhow, those were the days, huh?
No kidding.
Anyhow, so my question about Chromebooks, since I do, I'm just not at all technical really when it comes down to it, and my husband usually just does everything for me rather than show me what to do. So
yeah, see, that's not good because then you go, okay, now what?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I want a Chromebook because I want something that, I've got an all-in-one right now that just keeps crashing. And so the Geek Squad's going to get tired of me. And I wanted to get a Chromebook. And
I'm a big fan. And I think you'll be a fan, too, especially if you don't want to mess with stuff.
Yeah.
Because the Chromebook is kind of like a concept that we had way back then in the 80s of thin computing. The Chromebook is really a gateway to servers, and all the work, almost all the work is done, on servers, on Google's Drive, Google Docs, the web. But it's very secure as a result, and I think there are some beautiful Chromebooks out there. My current favorite is the Chromebook Spin from Acer, A-C-E-R.
I was just reading a review about an Acer, and
just came out, yeah, and it's Drool, exactly. Now it's not the cheapest. There are certainly cheaper computers, but it's reasonably priced for what you get. I think it's about $600, so that's a little pricey for a Chromebook. You can get much less, but of course you can also spend much more. Business models are more expensive. In fact, Acer is going to make a business version that'll start at $1,000. But for $600, you get an i5 processor. That's a lot for Chrome OS. 8 gigs of memory, more than enough. 128 gigs of RAM. To me, that is a competent computer by itself. And it's running Chrome OS, which makes it more secure. It's a Spin, which means you can tilt it around and use it as a tablet. Great for watching movies.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, I was listening to, since I couldn't get through, I was listening to hours and hours of your Chromebook comments on all of your shows. I was just
wow.
Your website is great.
Thank you.
I could just look up Chromebook and then go back to that one and then back to the next one.
Well, this Spin, your timing is good because, as you noted, this Spin just came out, and I think it's the current king of the crop. There's still a lot of good ones. Acer makes them. Asus makes them. Both of those are very good, but I like this new Spin. I think it's very good from Acer.
I don't think any of the Best Buys have any in stock yet.
They should soon. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Well, my pleasure. It's so nice to meet you. And the Naked Mini, Leo Laporte, the tech guy. It's so great to talk to you. So you weren't a technical person, but you were there when history was being made.
Yeah. I was more the writer-editor, and the technical guys always wanted me. I was good at editing technical stuff because I didn't know enough. You
could channel the reader. Yeah.
I didn't read between the lines, and I said something's missing here. You got
to explain this part. Yeah,
exactly.
Very nice. It's such a pleasure to talk to you, Linda. I'm glad you got through. And if you want to spend less, there's some good other. Somebody's saying, and I agree, the Lenovo Duet at $300 is very nice. What you get if you spend more is you get a better screen and keyboard and trackpad.
Right. And what I did was I converted my all of my money that instead of converting my rewards into stuff, I said, let's turn this into money and just put it in my credit card account so I'll have it for my Chromebook. So I've already got $400.
Good. Good.
So thank you. I have loved you for years.
Oh, Linda.
Talk the ears off of the guys in the Geek Squad. I say, hey, do you ever listen to Leo? He's not listening to Leo. He's on Saturdays and Sundays from 11 to 2 on 48.
Bless you, Linda. Oh, that's so nice of you. Thank you. That's really nice.
See you someday. Thank you.
Real pleasure meeting you. Thank you. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Funky, funky roadway. Lady Laura, you are just doing it today. I love that. Music director. I'm sorry, we promoted you, didn't we? Professor Laura. That's probably because her hair sticks straight out now. She looks like a crazy Professor Laura. Thank you. In the control room. Moving on with the show, Leo Laporte, the tech guy. 8888, ask Leo the phone number. Line 3 in Missoula, Montana. Hello, Andy.
Good afternoon, Leo. Thank you for taking my call.
Thanks for calling.
I do appreciate it. I got a problem here that I'm hoping you'll be able to help me with.
Okay.
I help my mother with her computer, and keep it updated. It has Windows 10 Home. Keep it updated as it's required. Use Windows Defender as the antivirus. Make sure it scans. I scan something every time I go over there. And a couple weeks ago, or maybe a little longer, all of a sudden the Windows menu key does not work. When you hit it on the keyboard or click it on the screen, the start menu does not come up. And I can't figure out how. I obviously rebooted it a few times, and it's just nothing I can do. And then when I Googled it, it talks about going into the registry, which is I'm a little leery about.
No, stop. So there are a lot of reasons that a start menu might not work. And as you've Googled it, you've already seen, I'd say, a roughly dozen solutions out there. Trust the ones more at Microsoft.com than others.
Okay.
Now, I completely sympathize with your situation because you've done, and I've done this as a son too, you've set up for your mom a great system. It's, and you've protected it, you've done everything right. But it's any user, especially a user who's not really sure what they're doing, can do things that will make things stop working. It's completely normal. And it's hard for you, and this is really the problem with operating systems like Windows. It's a powerful system. It's really it's not designed like a Chromebook might be for a user that just, wants to do stuff and is not sophisticated. Windows assumes either that you know what you're doing or you got an IT department. Most often the latter. Yeah. Guess who's the IT department for your mom?
Yeah, that would be me. Although I'll tell you, I use Remote PC for your suggestion. It works pretty slick.
That's a great way to get in there. Yeah. Do you know, and you probably don't, but did she recently run a Windows update?
She doesn't or didn't, but I do every time I go over there. So
Good.
Weekly I check it.
That's the way to do it, is not let her do it, because Windows in fact, this is one of the symptoms of a bad Windows update. So a Windows update can cause these kind of things. It could cause all sorts of things. That's why, although it's important to do, it is probably important for somebody like you to do it as opposed to for her. So you're doing the right thing. If you're seeing her every week, that's fine. That's more than, quickly enough. So there's a number of things. It can be the software. It can be software. Does she install software ever?
No, she doesn't. I do. And she only has a couple of things installed on it.
Yeah.
And they've been there forever. Should I just reinstall Windows completely?
That would be the easiest in some ways. I mean, you can't. A registry edit might work. So then that's a lot easier, but it's also a little riskier. But if you found some registry edits that might, I'm looking at all the things that can cause this, and there's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, there was. And I said, I'm a little leery about doing any registry edits.
Yeah. I mean, although if it doesn't work, then your fallback is reinstall Windows, which you were prepared to do anyway. There is in Windows 10, there's a refresh command that would be the first thing I would do, which isn't really reinstalling Windows. It's designed for this. It's designed to fix it. Have you tried starting up in safe mode to see if that works? Oh, guess what just happened? I said safe mode, and the phone's died. Oh, now he's back. Have you tried safe mode?
Hello.
Yeah. We had a brief outage. Go ahead.
Yep, I lost you at refresh.
Have you tried safe mode?
I have not tried safe mode.
So that's one thing. What that would tell you is if there's a conflict with a driver or some installed software. Okay. So if you go into safe, you know how to do that. You hold the shift key down, reboot, and hold the shift key, and when it's booting, it'll start up with a minimal set of drivers. If it works then, that makes it a lot easier because then it's something you can uninstall or get rid of. The other thing to do, and I would always do this from now on with your mom, is have another account that she doesn't use. Because the other diagnostic is to log into a second account and see if it's happening there. And the reason I always I always do this because I even do it on my systems. Whenever I set up a new system, I create an unused account, administrator account, and that's there for exactly these kinds of things where I say, well, let's see if it happens in somebody else's profile. If it doesn't, then it's something she did, something in her profile, maybe some button she clicked, some setting she made, but that makes it easy to fix also. Somebody's saying, and this is a good point, I don't know if this is the case, but make sure it's not in tablet mode. That would be something easily done by accident if she put it in tablet mode. And that's over in the system, in the task bar tray there. There's a whole lot of things you can do. You can do it from PowerShell. There's a PowerShell that re-registers the start menu. I can go on and on. These are kind of nutty little things. I don't think you need to reinstall Windows. What I was saying before we were cut off is if you go into the recovery, hit well, you can't get to the start menu, but if you can get to the recovery portion of the control panel, it's in the control panel, there's a refresh Windows command. I think I lost him again. But that is very useful. Honestly, this is one of the reasons I don't like using Windows for situations like this. I can use Windows, and probably a lot of you listening, and certainly everybody in the chat room, all the enthusiasts can use Windows without any problem. No problem. And so I'm not talking to you. You're the guys who always say, no, Leo, Windows is great, because you know what you're doing. And you're also a little used to the pain. You're used to the fact that you do a Windows update and everything breaks. Your printer stops working. Your desktop disappears. You're used to that. You know how to fix it. You Google some answers. You get it working again. Well, Leo, Windows is great. But you're an unusual crowd. You're an unusual bunch. Windows is really designed for you, the enthusiast, but much more. And Microsoft's business is really built on. It's for business, and business particularly with IT departments. And anybody who runs a small business without an IT department knows what I'm talking about here. Users can mess up Windows 100 ways to sundown in a blink. And if you don't have an IT department that's really locked it down, or some support desk that they can call, it's kind of a nightmare. So really, for mom, for anybody who isn't willing to do that, if you don't want to be the IT guy, and you are now, that's where a Chromebook is a really good solution. And the nice thing is, most of what people do, you got to watch mom and see what she does, but it's rare that normal people are doing anything that needs anything more than a browser. And they can live on Chrome OS very happily. And then if something goes wrong like this, a power wash gets you right back and up and running in minutes, and you're done. It's very simple and very easy. So don't yell at me, you Windows enthusiasts. I know you love Windows. Who doesn't? Everybody loves Windows. Except the poor people who have to use it and then have to call me. And I feel for you. It isn't easy. It's way overcomplicated. It's a power system for power users. Leo Laporte, the tech guy, thanks to Professor Laura, our musical director. She with the baton up on the podium there, leading the orchestra. Beautiful job today, Lady Laura. Our orchestra is one of the best cover bands in the world. We also thank Kim Schaffer, our phone angel, for hanging in there through the worst phone troubles ever. There's never been one like this, I think. It's still going bad, right? Yeah. What are you going to do? Wait, can I talk for another 13 minutes? What do you think?
I hope so.
I think so. There's lots to talk about. Thanks also to all of you, of course, because It'd be really silly if no one ever called the show and Leo had to talk for 3 hours. That wouldn't be any good, would it? No. So thank you for listening. Thank you for calling. Thank you for participating. Of course, don't forget the geek stuff continues all week long, not only at the website, techguylabs.com. And there's no sign up there. That's our website for the show where you can get all the answers, all the questions. You can do like our last call. You can listen through all of the conversations we've had about Chromebooks or whatever subject's on your mind. But I also do a podcast network that is full-time, new shows every day on all the geekiest topics. Got MacBreak Weekly, Windows Weekly, This Week in Tech, our Tech News Roundtable, which is every Sunday night. Security Now, we talk about how to secure your system and privatize your system. That's pretty geeky, that show. That's for the hardcore enthusiast. There's also iOS Today for people who like iPads and all about Android for you Android users. We got all sorts of stuff. That podcast network you'll find at twit.tv. I'm going to give myself a nice fat plug. Why not? TWiT.tv. So if you get, this week you get, a little lonely, you want some geeky enthusiast talk, twit.tv. And, of course, the chat room's there all the time, too, irc.twit.tv. Lots of good talk going on in there. Good place to go for help or just companionship. If you're kind of home alone and looking for somebody to talk to, that's a good place to go. Family-friendly, nice place. irc.twit.tv. Thanks to all our great moderators. Let's take a couple more calls before we wrap things up. Jim on the line from Calabasas, California. Hi, Jim.
Hi, Leo. Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you for calling. Thank you for hanging on.
I have a question for you. You, I believe, indicated that if I have a Windows 10 computer operating system and that the Windows Defender is sufficient to protect you against malware.
Absolutely. Well, it is and it isn't. So here's the deal on that. No antivirus is sufficient to protect you against malware, period. Right? Nobody's going to protect you 100%. So don't go wandering down dark alleys. You are the ultimate, defense, the first line of defense. Be careful what links you click. Be careful assuming that an email that seems to be from a friend or a coworker is really from that person. Very often it's not. Be careful what software you download. Download as minimal amount of software as you can. Stick with the stuff from known good companies, the big companies, or a company that you've done stuff with before. In other words, your behavior is much more important because no antivirus will protect you against dangerous behavior. It's nice to have something, kind of a backup, and the Windows Defender is as good as any other antivirus, and better in at least one respect because it comes from Microsoft. It's safer. They sandbox it, so if malware gets, a lot of antiviruses operate at a very low level in the operating system, and bad guys, if there's anything wrong with that antivirus, any mistakes made, can use it to get to the deepest levels of the operating system. And this has happened with big name antiviruses multiple times. Defender's safe, so it's good, as good as anything. It's not perfect, but nothing is, and it's safe to use. So yes, the answer is absolutely, it's enough. And we lost him. I wanted to give you a chance for a follow-up. Let me see if he comes back. I would not, he told Kim, I guess I'm looking at her notes, should he have Norton in addition? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. First of all, never, oh, there you are. Jim, is there anything else you want to know?
Well, I missed, you flapped out.
I know. Gosh darn that flapping.
So I kind of missed most of that. But I also signed up for Norton Internet Security because I figure the Windows Defender does not update as frequently as...
Yes, it does. It updates more than enough. Do not use Norton. Period.
Why is that?
2 antiviruses, bad idea. Norton is one of the antiviruses that in the past has caused problems because bad guys have been able to use it against you. And my experience with the Internet Defender is it's way overkill and causes all sorts of internet connectivity issues and slows down your computer. It's unnecessary. Defender is fine. You don't need Norton.
Well, okay.
Norton, it's not about how often it updates. Defender updates as much as it needs to, which is frequently. I'm sorry you missed the meat of the matter, which is, and I'll just say it quickly, it's you that's most important, your behavior online. No antivirus is anything more than maybe 50 to 60% accurate in stopping viruses. Too many get through. So you got to behave. And I'll give you the really important base rule. Install no more software than you absolutely need. Everything you install on your computer has the potential for opening holes in your computer, causing performance issues, causing reliability issues. Only install stuff you absolutely need from well-known companies. Do not install 2 antiviruses. You already have one. That's enough. Installing Norton will not make you more secure. It will make you less secure, period. There's no other way to say it. It will make you less secure. You don't need it. And it's expensive. I mean, it's an expense you don't need to engage. It's not that expensive, but why do it if you don't need it? If it's not going to help you. Our show today brought to you by, and by the way, it's not just Norton, it's all of them. Don't get anybody else. No, that doesn't matter who. I'm not picking on Norton. Don't get McAfee. Don't get anything else. I don't want to need to list all the antivirus programs. They're all unnecessary. You got Defender. On Windows 10, you got Defender. Last call of the day, Jose and Modesto. Let's see if we can get the phones to limp through one more call. Hello, Jose. No, we can't. Oh, well, we tried. I apologize. I don't know what's going on with our phone system. I can tell you, though, it's computer-based. Is that all you need to know? Yes. That's all you need to know. We'll get it working. Next week, the Independence Day holiday, I'm going to give everybody except Professor Laura the day off and the guys in the knock. You have to come in because we will do a show, but it just will be how do we say it? Encore presentation. And actually, Laura's doing a good job. She's putting together bits and pieces from different shows. It's going to be kind of interesting. So if you're around on Independence Day and the day after, I will be too, but I'll be back to take calls, and we'll have the phone system working by then, a week from today, or a week from Saturday, actually. Leo Laporte, the tech guy. Have a wonderful 4th of July. Don't blow yourself up. Please, I beg of you, but eat lots of strawberries and whipped cream. And wave the flag. Don't forget our website, techguylabs.com. Thanks to you, Professor Laura. Thanks to Kim Schaffer. Thanks to all of you for joining me. I am Leo Laporte. I am the Tech Guy, wishing you all a safe Geek Week. Take care. Bye-bye. Well, that's it for the Tech Guy Show for today. Thank you so much for being here. And don't forget, TWiT, T-W-I-T. It stands for This Week in Tech, and you'll find it at twit.tv, including the podcasts for this show. We talk about Windows on Windows Weekly, Macintosh on MacBreak Weekly, iPads, iPhones, Apple Watches on iOS Today, security on Security Now. I mean, I can go on and on and on. And, of course, the big show every Sunday afternoon, This Week in Tech. You'll find it all at twit.tv. And I'll be back next week with another great Tech Guys show. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you next time.